Hi, I'm Mandy Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Libra for July 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my new moon and full moon blogs to help you use these transits for most manifestation and positive outcomes. And if you're interested in learning astrology, then check out my astrology apprenticeship program, which may still have some slots available. You can see that at anniehelpsyou.com. So what's going on in the month of July? We have a crazy busy month astrologically. We have 2 of our 3 eclipses in this eclipse season. They're occurring in July. We have Mars still retrograde. We have Mercury going retrograde. We have Chiron having recently entered Aries, and that's particularly relevant for Libra because Aries opposes Libra, so we're going to talk about that. We've got Jupiter, this great gas giant, awakening and starting to bring blessings and noticeable expansion again in certain areas of your life, which we will talk about where that's showing up for Libra. And then, of course, these eclipses are a really big deal. I'm going to talk about the manifestations of the first eclipse, which is on July 12th, in the June report. So this is the July report. If you search for Annie Botticelli June 2018, we'll talk about that first eclipse manifestations for Libra in that report. This report will talk about the July 27th lunar eclipse at almost 5 degrees of Aquarius, and then in the August report, we'll talk about the August eclipse manifestations. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about, and I want to fit it all in. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is Chiron moving into Aries. Whenever planets, in this case it's an asteroid, but astrologers tend to call everything a planet, you know, so Chiron, when a planet that is further away from us moves into a new sign, it's a big deal because it's been giving lessons for years in that certain area, and it's been showing up in our charts in a certain way for years. But now things are shifting, okay? So Chiron moving into Aries means that anyone with Libra planets are going to have, in the next 5.5 or so years, at some point, anytime between now and, 5 to 6 years from now, are going to have Chiron oppose their Libra placements, okay? So this is a very important thing to note. If your birthday is right at the beginning of the sign, the first few days of the sign or the first few degrees, if you're watching for your rising sign, then you currently have Chiron opposing whatever your placement is. And you might be saying, what the heck is going on here? And all of you are going to experience this at some point. Okay, so Chiron is the wounded healer. Chiron was a gentle centaur. In Greek mythology, he was the trainer of heroes. He was the one who trained all the people, like all of the heroes that we hear stories about. Chiron was the one that trains them. And so he trains you by helping you come to terms with your wounded areas and either making them strengths or helping you to develop the strengths that you do have to further protect those weaknesses that you have. So this is a classic energy of a victim. Wherever we feel like we start to feel a little sorry for ourselves in that certain area of life, Chiron is the energy of that. So Chiron can bring up this tyrant-victim polarity in a very big way. Either someone's accusing you of being a tyrant, or you feel like someone is being a tyrant to you and you're the victim. It's bringing up this polarity that wants to be mitigated, it wants to be healed, it wants to be transcended. So you're going to have a lot of opportunity to do that. And as you do that, it's like you're putting coins in the bank of your empowerment. So sometimes it's a little bit messy to go through, but at the same time, the focus that you put there will definitely pay off for you. Okay, so you've got that going on. The next thing we have going on is Jupiter is awakening. So Jupiter, after having been direct for 4-ish months, is going direct, it has been retrograde for the last 4-ish months, is going to go direct at the beginning of July. And when it does, it's going to start awakening back to what it was doing before it went retrograde. So now it's been acting more in the backdrop, but the effects and the work will be more out there, will be more obvious. Okay, so for you early and, let's see, some middle degree placements, Jupiter has been working to accentuate, increase, improve, expand your finances and your values. Okay, if you were born in the first 20 days of the sign, or you have the first 20 degrees for your rising sign, then Jupiter is working in this sector for you at this time. So you might notice some good financial news come in. You might notice some, if you're working on a sustainability project, something to live more sustainably or live more simply, or something with restructuring your values and how you spend your time and use your resources. You might notice that. But for many people, it is a straight up material financial improvement. Many people I have seen with Jupiter moving through their second house will start to make more money when Jupiter is in their second house. And those people who don't experience that, many of them can feel like it's coming soon, like the seeds are being planted. So that might start to get activated again for you. Now, of course, it's always important to remember this spiritual law. We can only experience that which we are a vibrational match for. I have many people post and say, I'm having so much trouble, I can't seem to keep money, I don't have a job, I don't, whatever, different things that are going on with their finances. We don't know what lessons Spirit has to give us for our evolution. Only Spirit knows that. But if you have a general pattern throughout your life of having issues with money, that's an imprint that you have from the inside. And no wonderful transit in the world is going to permanently correct that unless you do the work to clear it out. Okay, so if you find that you've been having a pattern and Jupiter has been working in your second house and you're not seeing gains financially, then definitely look into doing some inner work. I love EFT, the emotional freedom technique, for this. I love Margaret Lynch's Tapping into Wealth, which is targeted EFT that focuses just on your career and your work and your money. And there are other things it focuses on too, but that's the results of what she's trying to help you with. I also love EMDR. It's a trauma release therapy that can help you release traumas that are causing you to be magnetic to more of the same patterns. So look into some of those things if you're not seeing manifestations. Something else that's going on this month, of course, is the Mars retrograde. Mars retrograde gives us lots of opportunity to rest, have recreation, to focus on. You could be comfortably productive, is what I like to call it, but don't try to push for anything. I'll get into more of that in the general transit report, but just remember that this period of time may bring you things, may put things in your lap, but it's not the time to try to force anything, because Mars is working very specifically with you. And you have to kind of see how that's going to go. If you wake up and you're inspired, you can try to do things. But the minute you start hitting roadblocks, let that be your alarm that says, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. Because that's what Mars is going to bring you, frustration and anger. If you try to push something and it doesn't work out, you'll get the frustration and anger. But if you notice it and you stop, you can have a really wonderful transit. All right, so we'll talk more about that later, but I want to talk now about the eclipses. Okay, so remember the June report is going to talk about this first eclipse on July 12th in Cancer. We're not going to talk about that one as it manifests for Libra in this report. What we are going to talk about is the one on July 27th that is at 4 degrees of Aquarius. And it's a total lunar eclipse. Okay, so the first thing to know is that Aquarius is a fellow air sign to Libra. So in general, when there's an eclipse in the same element as your sign, it's generally a positive boosting energy, especially if you have any Libra planets that are close to 4 degrees. So if you're from 0 to 8 or 9 or so degrees of Libra, so you're like in the first 9 days for the birthday or the first 9 degrees for your rising sign, then this eclipse is going to affect you in even better ways because it's going to make this beautiful aspect to your Libra placement. So that's the first thing to know. The second thing is that the area for all Libras where this is going to be accentuated for you is in the home sector. Okay, so home and family. Lunar eclipses tend to bring in culminations, fruition. Sometimes there's crisis, sometimes there's drama, sometimes there's high emotion. But sometimes the emotion is high because it's positive, you know? So something in the housing arena, maybe your perfect home comes in. Maybe your renovation you've been working on comes in or moves along further. It could be something, if you've been trying to work at home, maybe that works out. Or if you are in a business that is related to houses, like architecture, or anything where you're working from home, or psychology, or anything that is fourth house run, then it could come to major fruition. So something involving home, something involving family, the sale of a house, the marrying off of a child, you know, something changing in your family structure in a very big way. new beginnings and major endings could be happening there. So look out for your home and family sector to be very much accentuated during this time. In general, it's not a time to plan too many things because, well, I mean, you can plan things, but it's not a time to try to force things, as we talked about before, because you want to leave room, especially around the dates of these eclipses, around the 12th and around the 27th. If you have to do anything, try to do it earlier in the month or between those weeks or after, because sometimes there's more stress and activity at those times, and you want to be able to have your schedule more free in case there's something that comes to you to be dealt with. Okay, so those are the things that are most on my mind for Libra. Now I want to talk about more about this Mars retrograde. We also have Mercury retrograde. We're going to talk about some general implications of the eclipses and dates to look out for. We've got some beautiful trines this month and some other things to watch. So I'm going to go into all that now. So the theme of the month for all signs for July 2018 is 2 eclipses equals major transformation. We've been talking about these eclipses. We've got 3 in this cycle. 2 of the eclipses in this cycle are in July. The 3rd one is in August. Whenever it's eclipse time, drastic changes, expected and unexpected new paths open up. Very often there's a complete surprise trajectory change that takes us in a completely different direction. And in some cases it brings to fruition things intended or planned. And sometimes it can shorten the time frame for something that we had originally thought would be further out, where we wake up one day and we had planned something for the future and all of a sudden it's here now. So this eclipse time is a very powerful time, and there are other things going on besides these eclipses. So we're going to talk about these astrological transits to note for July. Mars is still in retrograde. So Mars just turned officially into retrograde at the end of June. I have been talking about this for a long time because it's a very long transit, and there is a period of time before and after a retrograde transit of a personal planet like Mars that is very long, and you start to feel the energies well before the retrograde actually occurs. Okay, so we've been talking about this Mars retrograde energy. We started feeling it in May, it officially turned in June, and now in July we are fully into Mars retrograde. So this Mars retrograde is bringing permission to rest and to focus on relaxation and recreation and what I like to call comfortable productivity. It's not that you can't get anything done in Mars retrograde. You absolutely can. You just have to follow the cues. It's not a time to be over ambitious unless, of course, if you have Mars retrograde at birth, sometimes you can get more done during this transit than you do normally. But you would know it, because if you're trying to do something and it's working out and it's flowing really easily and you're not having roadblocks and you're not having frustrations, then that's totally fine. When you need to take the cue to rest and back off is when you're pushing and it's not working out the way that you wanted it to. So instead of just continuing to push, taking a step back is what is well indicated when Mars is in retrograde. So to second this notion, we have other astrological forces that are saying the same thing. Mercury is going to go into retrograde, and that's going to be on July 25th. And once that happens, it's going to further bring the past back into the present. So the shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts early in July. So essentially the whole month is very much in this energy of things coming up from the past. So opportunities from the past, ideas from the past, projects from the past are all very much indicated to focus on at this time. At the same time as all of this energy is going on, we have the eclipses happening, and the eclipses may bring change and opportunities to act on, whether you want them or are ready for them or not, or maybe you are. But since there's so much energy pointing towards the past, a lot of times it will be things from the past finally coming to fruition now. So it's totally fine to say yes to the things that come to you. You just want to have an awareness of maybe not having all of the information, maybe the project being different or turning out different than you think. And the big key here is to be the spider. Okay, the eclipses and the retrogrades both tell us the same story, which is be the spider. So spiders weave their web and they wait for the food to come to them. So that's the kind of time that this July energy is really bringing. It's bringing this just chilling out and waiting and seeing what comes to you, and then you can work with what comes to you as it comes. Okay, so we've also got 5 trines this month. Trines are the most wonderful harmonious aspect in astrology. So I'm going to give you some dates to watch here. Now, the dates that I'm going to list, I'm going to go into some detail about the transits, but if you'd like more detail about the transits I'm talking about or transits that I'm not talking about that are also occurring, then definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and you'll receive monthly written reports a month before the relevant time. If you've already signed up for my newsletter and you're not receiving my reports, they're either going into spam, promotions, social, or events folders in your email. So look for them in there and then transfer them into your inbox so that you get my mailings. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the dates to note. The first one, actually, I'm going to just list these sweet spot dates. They're trines, they're beautiful aspects where things can gel together in a wonderful way, where there's just little sweet spots. So in the days around July 5th, July 8th, July 11th, July 13th and 14th, July 25th, we're having this beautiful aspect of trines on all of those days. So look out for little boosts at that time. The next date to note is July 12th, and that is this partial solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So for everyone, every sign, this can bring new things involving home, family, houses, real estate, anything involving home. If you're an architect, it could involve your work. You know, anything that involves homes or housing or family or childhood or psychology, childhood psychology especially. All of these things are very high on the list of potential manifestations from this solar eclipse energy. So in the days around July 12th, you'll especially feel this eclipse energy, but remember that you could have gotten news about this manifestation that may come in as soon as May, because we've got like 6 to even sometimes 8 weeks ahead of time is when pieces of the story start coming in for these eclipses, okay? But that is a date to note. I always try to avoid doing anything important on the eclipse dates. You just kind of want to try to be available for whatever shows up. On July 27th, the second eclipse is a total lunar eclipse, and this one is at 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. So here we'll see a lot of activity along the lines of friends, friendships, acquaintances, social media, groups, humanitarian efforts, internet-based projects, large organizations, anything having to do with innovation or technology. So look for those things. And again, this stuff could come in months before or months after. We're moving along a continuum with these eclipses, but that's on July 27th is when the actual event occurs. Okay, so some dates to look out for that could bring some challenges. And you'll notice that some of the dates I listed for the trines that have some sweet spots, there are also some challenging aspects on those dates. So you may feel them on the same day, something positive happening, something challenging happening, or you may feel one day it's a little pocket of a sweet spot and the next day is a little bit of a challenge. It's always hard to be black and white about how these energies are going to manifest, but I just want to list them so that you can be aware. On the 5th of July, on the 9th, on the 24th, on the 25th, and on the 26th and 27th, we've got challenging aspects on those dates. We have some squares, we have some oppositions, and these bring pressure to change, basically, or put pressure on viewpoints or ways things have been done. You know, they're basically, I describe them as the pressure. Well, the squares are the pressure that creates the diamond. So sometimes if we have a diamond that we want to create in our lives or a vision for this diamond, we have to do something about it. And if we're not doing something about it, or we're not sure what to do, this pressure comes in the form of this square. And it either shows us what we have to do or makes us fed up so that we actually take action. So you might see that energy show up this month from those squares. The oppositions bring overstimulation. Overstimulation is when there's a lot of busyness in opposing forces in our lives. So we've got an opposition in Leo and Aquarius in the 5th, so that could have to do with your own creativity versus the group, like your own flow versus the group flow. And then we've got another opposition on the 24th with Venus and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces. So this can be a lot of push and pull about the seen world and the unseen world, the logical world and the abstract world, and the intuitive world. You know, so you'll see some overstimulation with trying to balance being in multiple dimensions at once. Okay, so the things to note for this month: lots of sweet spots, some challenging points, and definitely massive opportunities for change, massive opportunities for things coming to fruition. The keynote here is to try to not plan too much unless you're very intuitively directed, or unless it comes to you to be planned for that time and that's out of your hands. And if something comes to you, then it's definitely fine to say yes to it. Just be aware that there may be changes that are continuing to happen over the rest of the retrogrades, and just to navigate as consciously as possible, leaving as much flexibility in your arrangements as possible. Mars retrograde is continuing this energy of relaxing, taking vacations, taking trips, doing nothing. And in that space of doing nothing, this is one of the most magical things that I love about retrograde. So people say, well, you can't do anything in retrogrades, and it's totally not true. It's just not a time to push. It's not a time to go against the tides. But what you can do, I always call it the shavasana of transits, because in that few minutes of shavasana at the end of a yoga practice, that integration, that quiet time, is when the insights come, when the clarity comes, when the important pieces come, when the breakthroughs come. So this Mars retrograde, this month of July, is like this shavasana point where from that quiet space, pure genius can pop in and change everything. So these are the things that are most on my mind for the month of July. If you would love to learn astrology with me, check out my astrology apprenticeship program. I also have lots of other cool educational offerings on my site, both to change your vocation or just for your self-development and growth. I have my Astaria School of Practical Magic, which is a really fun way to work with the unseen realms and bring them into the seen realms. Definitely check out my hubby's offerings, B.R. Newman, at IamHelios.com, IamHelios.com. He's got lots of sound frequencies that help to balance out challenging transits and also help to empower you during the transits that we have going on. So definitely check his site out. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.